Right, my name's Dave Dewhurst. Hello everybody. We've had a quick reorganisation, as is often the way, and I'm speaking second instead of third. First of all, I'm going to be saying pretty much the same things to you as the first three speakers, and I absolutely agree with what Cyril said. I'll just try and say them in a slightly different way. So I'm here under the heading of economics, and I'm a member of the economics working group. We don't have any committees, but we do have about 35, or is it 43, working groups, which may mean sitting around in a circle on the steps outside St Paul's, or occasionally we find a more salubrious coffee bar or pub or whatever. Okay, so what has got us to the present economic mess that we're in today? You've already heard a couple of versions, 3 versions. I agree with them. The way I'd reframe it is effectively, since, let's say, the early 70s, we've effectively had a tax strike. Now, let's not exaggerate. We've had a tax go slow by the rich, by the super rich. And the way that has worked has been both deregulation, with a certain amount of economic rationale behind it, which I vehemently disagree with, and it's been by the creation of such structures as tax havens, whereby if you're very rich, even if you do change the regulations, you can hide your money away so that nobody can get any more of it anyway. So we've had an increasing focus, redistribution of income up towards the top. On the OECD figures which came out last week, going up to about 2005, I think it said that in the UK, the top 1%, no, the top 0.1% owned 5% of the wealth in this country. Not good, yeah, maybe not quite as shocking as the figure, and Robin can correct me on the final absolute details of this. About a third of the land in this country is owned by about 7,000 people. I may be out by a factor of a few thousand, but the principle is effectively there is a top 0.1% or 0.2%, which is getting even worse. As I say to some people, I'm not really worried by ordinary millionaires. It's the decamillionaires, the centimillionaires, and the billionaires that really freak me out. And although we talk about the 99%, the multiplier of wealth between the people in the bottom 1% and just before the top 1% is smaller than the people within that top 1%. What's all this got to do with democracy? Rather a lot. Because if you want, anybody who happened to peruse the Financial Times today will see this sort of lovely little set of graphs showing the burgeoning increase of funding of our present governmental party by the managers and owners of hedge funds. It's actually only about 10 and a bit percent, according to the Financial Times. But there is also the whole of the rest of the financial structure, possibly about 50% of their funding is coming that way. And for my sins, I joined the Labour Party when I was about 25, and I still pay my subscription, and I'm ashamed of this, but they're not a lot better either. So to take a couple of illustrations, about a year ago, the former head of the World Bank said, in America, the average voter has got almost as much influence as the financial structure, as financial interest. Now, did you all get that? So I hope you did. Basically, he's saying the fact, yeah, we've got this great democratic voting system, and it's got less influence than the people who've done. Again, I get most of my radical points by reading the Financial Times, of course, and reading it today. It was talking about how various Republicans were lining up to get what money is left in Wall Street. I think there is a little bit there still nowadays in order to be able to fund their campaigns and run their campaigns. And if you can't get that money out of those people, well, is it really worthwhile starting? So we've had this radical transfer of wealth to the rich. But what's wrong with that? I mean, aren't they better than us? Aren't they more intelligent than us? Isn't that the way life is? The top predator sort of is entitled to feed on all the rest. And why should we go against these notions of nature? Well, suppose you were in the 1%. How would you try and dominate everybody else? It's rather like being a head teacher and standing in front of an assembly. It's partly bluff. It's also divide and rule. You break them up into different houses and have them all competing against each other instead of you. You say, you are individuals. You are each trying to get the highest possible mark from me because I give out the marks. How did the Romans conquer Britain? It wasn't just great fighting skills. It was divide and rule and getting people within Britain fighting against each other. And I think people in Britain learned that rather well. And if you look at the development of the British Empire, we were quite good at getting different groups fighting against each other and then sort of swinging the thing from the majority. So there is this sort of pseudo-socio-biological rationale which has been pervaded, particularly over the last 30-odd years, when, as one of our speakers said, we are actually fundamentally, socio-biologically, pretty cooperative individuals. We didn't see most of the other major mammals off the planet by standing up to them individually. We work together, and that, okay, there is some kind of a dilemma between cooperation and competition, and the way society has gone now, it is massively blinding people to their capacity for competition. So when I read the sheet saying your aims here, I felt seriously worried because unlike most lectures that I've been to and got through hundreds of them in my life now, and I've kept myself awake by thinking, how could you say the exact opposite and make it sound just as good? It's a good technique if you ever go to in-service training or anything like that. I find I actually agreed with everything these people said, which is kind of annoying. But it's getting that insight across to everybody else that we are cooperative individuals. And actually, morality is a more intelligent form of selfishness. I mean, it might just pay me to rip one of you off if I thought I was never going to see you again and I could run away. But one of the things you learn with great age is you just never know who's going to pop back into your life again. And sometimes you think, thank goodness I didn't really alienate them. It's paid off for me. So we've got all these very short and silly models of how being an individual and fighting to get to the top gets you somewhere. I could talk about the theory of games and economic behaviour. How many people in this room have heard of the prisoner's dilemma? Okay, quite a few people. It's basically about if you can trust the other person, you work with them, and you get a greater return than if you do it individually, than if you operate individually. Although, if I can get away with ripping you off, or you can get away with ripping me off, which is a current sort of economic paradigm, then it seems like a win, although collectively it is a loss. And the situation we're in the world at the moment is a kind of glorified prisoner's dilemma, whereby you may have seen that a couple of days ago the British government loosened up again the regulations for British companies coming to Britain being able to use tax havens. They make it, you have to prove even less. But hey, we're getting a little bit of money in, which we should have had, which would otherwise have gone from Ireland. Now, when I see people doing this to me, it means that I'm talking for too long. And when I see 3 of my colleagues doing it, I think this is probably something that I ought to pay attention to. Maybe there's going to be time for some real economics at the end, but I think I better give everybody else a chance.
James?